the demand from passengers is constantly changing and forcing the aviation industry to adapt to new processes, work processes, as well as technologies. In this current time, the issue of COVID-19 is what globally the aviation industry is trying to tackle. How then is Kenya's local aviation industry adapting to the current changes, especially in light of this pandemic? To take us through that conversation is none other than the Director General of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Gilbert Kibe. Thank you for your time, sir.
You're welcome, Regina.
In light of this pandemic, how is the aviation industry, reinventing itself?
Okay. Globally, everybody has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in a very serious and negative way. But most hit is our sector, the aviation sector, where we've had traffic drop of 94% since the pandemic began. With that drop, it means that our revenues have dropped by over 80%, which is a very serious strain on the operations of this organization, and of course all the other organizations in the sectors of the economy of Kenya. And so then therefore we've had to come up with ways of finding out how do we get into a sustainable form of operation. One of the ways is to look for new revenue streams, and we are fortunate to have a new revenue stream in the use of drones, which was recently introduced into the country. And we are also getting additional revenue from high altitude balloons, which are being used for relaying mobile and data to mobile networks around the country. And maybe we'll say that a bit later. But then we've also had to change the way we run our operation. Not all of us can be working the way we used to. So with the protocols that have been brought out, which are very simple, wash your hands, wear a mask, and practice physical distance. We're no longer calling it social distance. Has proved to be a challenge. So certain parts of our organization, we've had to reduce the number of people who are working at the same time.
Talking about the industry reinventing itself, we have some local airlines that are now planning to venture into cargo business. One of them is Jambojet, and it also plans to increase its flight route to include different destinations. We want to know what is the update in regard to Jambojet and just airlines reinventing themselves during this COVID-19 situation.
Right, because passenger flights had stopped, many operators turned to cargo, because globally cargo has never been has been exempted from that rule. So what many airlines have done, the ones who don't have cargo aeroplanes, they were able to get and convince us through the manufacture of those aeroplanes how they can fly cargo safely in a passenger configured aeroplane. So many airlines have done that. Kenya Airways, Jambojet have also done that, and even some of the other airlines in Kenya, they have done the conversion that is required and approved by the manufacturer so that you can fly cargo in the cabin where there's seats normally. So it is true, because there was a sudden upsurge in cargo traffic, and that cargo was mainly medical supplies being flown around all over the world, from China, the US, and everything.
Now, before you give us more detail in regard to that matter, we want to understand then, from your standpoint as a regulator, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, what are you doing in your capacity to just support the retaking up to the skies of both domestic and international flights?
When we had to suspend all flying, and that is KCAA, we are the ones who suspended all flying into Kenya, both domestically and internationally. We have had to assist aviators in certain ways. For people who are licensed by us, like pilots, engineers, and cabin crew, air traffic controllers, etc., we require, under normal circumstances, an annual renewal of a license. Now that annual renewal requires a medical certificate, a medical check, and also a certain number of hours or period of time that you should have been in operation in a given period over 1 year. And then so we find that many people were coming towards the expiry of their licenses, but they were not able to go for a medical renewal because even the doctors, aviation medical examiners, were not seeing any patients in the early part of the pandemic. So we had to give some kind of an extension to the validity of a license. So we extended pilots and engineers and those sort of licensed personnel. We give them an extension of 45 days on the validity of their license. And when that period comes to an end, we would give another 45 days. So we're able to extend in stages of 45 days, 45 days. Now, the people who are holders of certificates, like air operating certificates or air service licenses, I'm talking about the operators in aviation, we also had to give them a dispensation. That dispensation meant an extension of the validity of their license or their certificate. Because of these unusual circumstances, we were able, my office was able to issue those extensions and dispensations for a given period of time, and we've reported to the global aviation regulator, the International Civil Aviation Organization. We have told them what we have done, because it's important that they know the steps that each partner state of members of ICAO have done in order to ease the burden of what is happening in the aviation sector today.
Now, that said, what so far is the feedback from the resumption or the reopening of domestic flights? Yes. What has been the uptake and the response you're getting? Feedback.
The feedback has been wonderful. All the operators who have begun their operations are happy. They are now able to generate revenue. The people who had been stopped from traveling between parts of Kenya, and in particular, remember the areas that were locked down, like Nairobi and Mombasa and Malindi and Kwale. When especially Nairobi and Mombasa was opened for movement by road, rail, and air, it made life sort of come back to normal. We can now visit our relatives, friends, and conduct our businesses among the different towns in Kenya. So that has brought a significant increase from zero to now a regular uptake of passengers. But we are not yet at the pre-COVID levels. It will take time for that to happen. And all estimates are showing that it will take between 2 to 3 years for aviation to get back to a resemblance of what it used to be before COVID. And I'm only talking about domestic so far. Of course, international is on the way.
That ecosystem, most Kenyans are really concerned about their in-flight time. That is, those are the questions that Kenyans are worried about. Or yes. Anyone who's thinking, to fly international this time. Are we going to have, social distancing within the plane? What measures have you taken, especially in flight?
Now, in flight, it's important for the public to know that it is very, very difficult to get the coronavirus transmitted when you're inside an airplane. Why? The environmental control system inside an airplane works in a manner that makes it nearly impossible for you and I to breathe the same air, even though we are sitting next to each other. So that even if you cough or sneeze, the way the flow of air is directed is pretty much downward. And then we have a filtration system inside that airplane known as a high efficiency particulate filter, a HEPA filter. Now, that filter filters out 99.9% of all viruses and bacteria that are known to man. So the possibility of getting corona inside an airplane is nearly zero. We can never be 100% sure. But remember, you're also wearing a mask. inside an aeroplane. You've also sanitized yourselves. So it is not practical to have social distancing in an aeroplane.
Then what happens to these passengers who might be flying and are positive?
The government has said that any international arrival, each person must be COVID negative. So you have to come with a certificate that is recognized that you are a negative person for coronavirus. So that is one major step that the airline has done. Now, but it may not be possible to control that 100% because maybe you could have captured, if you got your results like 3 days before, maybe the day before you went somewhere where you may have captured the virus. That is why we are saying in our protocols, we are assuming and we know that some people will be positive. But then we are saying that we have put measures in place that will protect you from being infected by that person through the various means that we've done. And the simple thing is, wash your hands, wear a face mask, practice social or physical distance where it is possible, in an airport lounge, whatever. But inside an airplane, you can't. But then, in case somebody gets symptoms on board an airplane, we have, in the protocol it says that a certain number of seats have to be left empty. So in a 100-seater, you can get like 3 seats are left empty. In a 300-seater, maybe 6 seats are left empty, so that if somebody starts developing symptoms, you move that person to that empty seat to be isolated from other people. And of course, the crew will have to report that there is somebody with these symptoms, and so that when they land, the person is immediately taken care of by the port health officials.
Now, Gigi, what options is Kenya looking at in as far as, unmanned aircraft system, traffic management systems are concerned?
Okay. In March, 30th of March this year, the Civil Aviation Unmanned Aircraft System regulations came into force. So today, it is legal to operate drones in this country, but under the terms and conditions under those regulations. So we also did a public participation exercise on that one, and it is going well. And now the document is with our Cabinet Secretary for Transport, ready to promulgate those charges and put them into force. Now, so UAS, Unmanned Aircraft System, is what we call a drone. But you mentioned UAS Traffic Management System, a UTM. Now, that one is a system that is able to know the whereabouts of each drone that is flying around in our country. That is a project that we as KCA are planning to procure. So we're going around the whole world to see what UTM systems there are available that would be suitable for Kenya, because we do want to know where every drone is, the ones that we license to operate.
So far, let's talk about the drones. How many persons, companies, or individuals have so far, expressed interest to use this drone technology? Then further on, with this system that you're looking at, will you just man, or rather, how then will it affect the issue of security? What impact will it have as far as security is concerned within the aviation industry?
We have had hundreds of applications from individuals, organizations, corporates, research organizations. The whole scope of drone operations, people have applied. And so some have already received our authorizations, permits to fly, but we are still going through the process. The first thing we want to do is to register everybody that has a drone in this country. As you know, there are many drones that are operating in this country, and they all came in before the regulations were out. So in a way, they were operating illegally. So we want to know who are these people who have drones, and we have them registered so that we can keep in touch with them. Now, in terms of security, our regulations are very, very clear on how we shall handle the issue of security and privacy of persons, and there are the mitigations that can be done in case of a security threat, and there are the fines and or imprisonment that will be meted out on anybody who breaks the law in terms of a security nature. So that is covered in our regulations.
Now, further on, talking about policy, what is Kenya's state of preparedness in view of the Universal Security Audit Program?
Yes, the USAP, Universal Security Audit Program, is an ICAO program. I'm happy you know about it. Now, we are pretty much prepared. We were going to be audited by ICAO for that USAP in May of this year. But because of COVID, it was postponed until next year. So we don't have the date of when that will be, but I can say that we were very well prepared. In our last audit in 2015, we received a score of 88% of effective implementation of universal security regulations. So we have no doubt that we're going to perform the same or better when the next USAP comes.
What is KCAA doing, in light of aircraft crashes that you have seen in the recent months, locally and even just across borders in Somalia?
We have the civilian accidents and incidents. Now, those are investigated by the Air Accident Investigation Department, which is under the Ministry of Transport. KCAA is not an aircraft incident or accident investigator. We have the government department that does that. So I think people mistakenly think that we're involved in investigation of aircraft accidents. No, we are not. Then there's so I'm talking about the civilian accidents, the ones that happen here and even the ones that happen outside of the country. So recently there were 2 incidents in Somalia. Those accidents, our Air Accident Investigation Department went to Somalia and joined the Somalia Air Accident Investigation Department to do their investigation on those accidents and incidents that are there. We are not in that system, so but we know the investigations are ongoing, and they're going very well. So we shall know pretty much soon what the verdict is.
Do we have, the appropriate cybersecurity measures within the aviation industry, to act as a buffer in the event of these cybersecurity attacks that you've seen? Airports are still dealing with that, especially,
Yes.
in different parts of the world.
Yes, all aviation organizations have a cybersecurity program for preventing acts of what we call unlawful interference. So we too at KCA, we have an entire team that is dealing with the threats of cybersecurity. So we have our ICT people and a group of others who have formed a committee that deals and tackles with issues of cybersecurity, so that even in the systems that we buy for our organization, we ensure that there's a package that takes care of the issue of cybersecurity. But not only that, we also have a risk management program as the organization, and there's a committee that is dealing with the risk management, so that we look at the risk profile of KCA, and it reports. We have committees at every station that we have in the country, 8 committees. We look into the risks that have been identified there and how we can mitigate those sort of risks. Cybersecurity is a standing agenda item in the meetings that they have. And then they bring the reports to headquarters, to a committee that I chair, so that we are kept up to speed with what is happening. So not just cybersecurity, but even in areas of corruption, risk management. I think we have committees that also report to my office.
Going forward into the future, what are your projections for the industry in the, at least in the next 6 months, the half year of 2020, in light of these current developments?
The next half year will demonstrate to us the direction that the aviation industry is going, not only domestically, but also regionally and globally. So it is important so that by the time Christmas comes, December, January, we will know pretty much how far we have gotten to in the recovery program and how much time we expect it will take to get to pre-COVID levels. So it will be an interesting period to watch. So we've had nearly 15 days of the resumption of domestic services, and we have seen improvements, because from nothing we are back to somewhere. On the 1st of August going forward, we're seeing the resumption of international scheduled services. You've seen yesterday there was a notice by various airlines, British Airways, Emirates, Air France, KLM, all those, who all want to come back, and from the 1st of August. Which, when you look at it, it says a lot about Kenya. Why would those airlines want to come back to Kenya? And they're very enthusiastic about it. It means that Nairobi, for even those global carriers, is a very major hub in Africa. I would even venture to say that Nairobi is the most important hub in all of Africa, and I'm happy to say that. It means that our location is strategic. The value that we bring to those international carriers is very high, and it is a central area that you can use to go to other parts of Africa. So we will know in the next 6 months where we will be. We'll have started domestic and international, so that we can predict where we're going to go. For me, I'm excited. I am hopeful that things will get better sooner rather than later. But like I said earlier, we can expect maybe 2 to 3 years by the time we get back to pre-COVID levels.
Thank you very much, sir. There you have it. We have been having a conversation here with none other than the Director General of KCAA, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, which is the aviation industry regulator, Captain Gilbert Kibe, exuding a lot of optimism in as far as the local aviation industry, that says the next 6 months are going to be very crucial for this industry post-COVID. I'm Regina Manyara. You're watching KBC Channel 1 Business.